is my PLC project. So we're going to look at the meeting agenda, vision statement for my classroom, the problem statement, intervention and articles, pre-assessment data, post-assessment data, and the next steps for the intervention strategy. So I'll give you a brief introduction of my program. So this is the literacy for my literacy specialist program. Bless you. This is a PLC class. I was just working collaboratively with the team and making sure that we're setting goals for our grade level and for our kids. We're going to review my vision statement. I'll introduce the problem that I have noticed with my kids and the intervention strategies that we have done. So while we're thinking about what we want our kids to be able to do, and then what plan do we want to implement, and then the results of my plan. So my vision statement was something that I looked at in my classroom about what I want my kids to be able to do and what I want them to feel like when they're in the classroom. So my classroom is a community where all students feel safe and welcome. Students will be empowered to take control of their learning and development, and I'll encourage them to be reflective in their successes and obstacles in and outside of the classroom, and they will strive to be resilient, lifelong learners in the face of adversity. So I chose this vision statement because of the struggles that our kids have and how I want them to be successful in and out of the classroom regardless of where they come from or what they've experienced. Okay, so I noticed that in my classroom, and I'm sure you guys have seen it in your classroom too, with writing, about organizing our thoughts in writing. So when we did the on-demand the first time, I noticed my kids were not very good at organizing their writing in order, in sequential order, and using transitions. So after we sat down and talked and looked at the Foursquare model at ILT, then we decided to use that to help us and to see if that could help with organization a little bit. So that was my intervention plan. So using a pre-writing strategy, and then specifically I chose the Foursquare model to help them have organized on-demand writing pieces. And so every Friday we've dedicated to on-demand writing instead of doing shared reading, so that students can use those pre-writing strategies and to help jot down ideas and get them started. So these are just two articles that I chose. One of them was the article or the book about the Foursquare writing method by Julie Gold, and it has a lot of good examples in there as well as ideas for using the Foursquare even in the younger grades. And then an article that another student in 2011 did at St. John Fisher College that had a research project based on pre-writing, and it just talked about how pre-writing helps kids be more successful when writing because they're not just coming up with something, especially like ELL students, gives them a chance to organize their writing and talk about what they would want to write about instead of just throwing them right into it. So what is the Foursquare writing method? So students use this Foursquare to help organize their paragraphs by topics and examples and expand. So they start with their claim, whatever their opinion is, and then that would be the starter for their introduction paragraph. And then we started with coming up with reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3 for whatever their claim is, and then going back and putting in details and evidence for each reason. So as a third grader, we want them to do at least 2 or 3 details per reason, and then expand on those details as well, and then use all of those to sum up in a conclusion statement. So this will help them with their paragraph writing. So this is the plan. So week 1, I introduced the prompt, and so students were given this prompt that we came up with as a school. And so some kids have nothing to do, and it was talking about what do they want to do with their spare time, so they could pick any activity they wanted. And then we came up with this on-demand guide, a SPAT, so situation, purpose, audience, and task. And then we filled that out together. And then we wrote their opinion in the middle box, and they had to come up with 3 reasons why. So we just started with their claim and their reasons. So that was the first week. And the second week, they expanded on their details. So for example, one student said going to the park. So their claim was, I think kids should go to the park. Then they gave reasons why. And then that second week, they added 2 pieces of evidence about why kids should go to the park. And then I modeled how to use this organizer to come up with a conclusion statement that they could expand on later. And then week 3, before we started the writing piece, we gave them a rubric, kind of what would a second and third grade writing piece look like. So they would have their purpose and focus would be clear, their transition between paragraphs would be clear, and the structure would be, correct spelling, their introduction, 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion. And then they also make sure that they're using those conventions that we should use as 3rd graders. And then I modeled how to use my organizer with them and then to put it into a paragraph. And we used different colors to highlight what needed to go where. And then we turn it into a 5-paragraph piece. So this is my pre-assessment data. So this is without an organizer. So we looked at, or without the Foursquare. So we looked at their writing before they used an organizer. And so on a scale of 0 to 4, this was their results about if it was organized, if it made sense, and things like that based on that rubric I showed earlier. And so we noticed a lot of kids are falling below that 2 mark instead of, they're kind of in that novice apprentice area. And then after using the Foursquare, looking at their writing, these are some of the results. So I had some kids who their writing was really organized and well written, and all of their things made sense, their transitions flowed, and their paragraphs looked a whole lot better than they did the first time. I still had some kids that struggled, but most of them did improve. And here's some examples. So the first time we did our reasons, and then we did our evidence, and we highlighted our reasons in yellow, our evidence in pink. And then the next week we added examples or an explanation based on our evidence, so giving them a little bit more detail. So this was the same student. She just didn't finish this box, but for example, like she started with 3 sentences in each box, and we turned it into 5 or 6 sentences in each box. And then her final piece looked like this. So this was the one after doing pre-writing strategies, after meeting with me to go over her work. So she has her heading looks like it should on a letter, and every paragraph is indented. It has transition words, and they even have their closing. So they included all the parts after using their organizer. So my next steps, I said after analyzing their writing, I know there still needs to be a plan to continue growing. So we're going to work on the same prompt to revise and edit and embellish their writing, because some students still don't have that introduction paragraph or that conclusion paragraph down, or their hook. So making it a little bit more interesting for the reader, and also building on their conclusion and their introduction based on what they already have. So we're going to spend the next couple of weeks revising and editing those things.